What if one man's obsession with war shaped the fate of an empire? Franz Conrad von Hötzendorf, a name often relegated to the margins of World War I textbooks, was far more than a career officer. He was the strategic architect behind some of the bloodiest and most ill-fated campaigns of the early 20th century. An inflexible militarist with a deep-seated belief in Austria. Hungary's moral and martial superiority, Conrad championed preemptive war, not as a last resort, but as a vital necessity. His fervent conviction that only armed conflict could secure the empire's future would drag millions into a storm of destruction. Born on November 11, 1852, in Penzing near Vienna, Conrad was destined for military life from the start. Raised in a family with a tradition of service, he entered cadet school at 10 and soon stood out for his sharp analytical skills and unwavering discipline. By the early 1900s, his prowess as a military theorist and teacher at the War Academy had cemented his reputation. His promotion to Chief of the General Staff in 1906 gave him real power he would wield with relentless intensity. Conrad's worldview was shaped by paranoia and ambition. He viewed Serbia and Italy not merely as rivals, but as mortal dangers to the survival of the dual monarchy. Serbia, in his mind, was the seedbed of Slavic nationalism, a force that could fracture the empire from within. Italy, despite being a formal ally in the Triple Alliance, was seen as duplicitous and opportunistic, waiting for the right moment to strike. To Conrad, delay was fatal. He pressed Emperor Franz Joseph repeatedly, almost obsessively, to authorise military action. Between 1906 and 1914, he made no fewer than 25 formal proposals for preventive war against Serbia. Each time diplomacy intervened, or caution prevailed. Frustration mounted. Conrad saw the hand-wringing of Vienna's politicians and diplomats as weakness. He believed the empire had a narrow window to assert its dominance and neutralise threats before it was encircled or dismembered, but his cries for action went unheeded until June 28, 1914. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo cracked open the door Conrad had long tried to kick down. With public outrage and nationalist fervour rising, Conrad finally had his war. But the conflict he had yearned for, swift, decisive, heroic, was anything but. His invasion of Serbia in the summer of 1914 began disastrously. Poor coordination, outdated logistics and insufficient troop training turned bold offensives into chaotic retreats. The mountains and rivers of the Balkans swallowed his men, not with glory, but with mud, disease and attrition. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front in Galicia, Conrad launched a separate offensive against Russia. There too his grand strategies unravelled. Underestimating the enemy and overestimating his own forces, he led his soldiers into a slaughterhouse. Tens of thousands perished in engagements marked more by confusion than courage. Still, Conrad refused to alter his approach. He clung to outdated military doctrines, favouring frontal assaults and rigid command hierarchies in an age increasingly defined by mobility, technology, and trench warfare. He believed deeply, almost religiously, that war was a crucible, a purifier that could strengthen the moral fibre of the empire. He saw internal weakness, ethnic division, and bureaucratic stagnation as afflictions curable only through prolonged conflict. In 1916, following years of failure, Conrad was paradoxically promoted to Field Marshal. Yet the promotion was symbolic, a way to honour his long service rather than an endorsement of his effectiveness. Behind the scenes, discontent was growing. Officers whispered doubts. Politicians began questioning his judgment. Even allies in Germany began to lose faith in his competence. When Emperor Franz Joseph died later that year, Conrad lost his most powerful supporter. His successor, the young and reform-minded Charles I, was determined to end the bloodshed. He sought peace negotiations and military reform, ideas antithetical to everything Conrad believed. By March 1917, the writing was on the wall. Charles dismissed him from the general staff, replacing him with a commander more attuned to the changing nature of war and diplomacy. Conrad, once the empire's most forceful advocate for war, was now a sidelined figure, haunted by decisions that had bled Austria-Hungary dry. He spent his final years in relative quiet, penning memoirs and defending his record. He argued that he had been right all along, that only through aggression could the empire have survived. History, however, saw it differently. Franz Conrad von Hötzendorf died on August 25, 1925,